Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us today. We're going to be discussing leveraging Google Shopping for a blowout holiday season. My name is Zach Bruner. I'm an account manager here at Hanapin Marketing and a writer for PPC Hero. I've been in the industry for around a year and a half with a primary focus in e-commerce accounts. I also have today with me Julia Meter. Julia, if you wanted to go ahead and give a brief introduction as well.
Hey everyone, I'm an agency development manager here at Google. I work with the Hanapin team. Very excited to be here today talking about shopping in the holiday season, which is coming up sooner than any of us expected.
Thanks, Julia. So who is Hanapin? We run the world's most popular PPC blog called PPC Hero and conference HeroConf. In October, we'll be in London for our International HeroConf. You can find more about that at www.heroconf.com. Hanapin Marketing is an industry-leading digital marketing agency that manages and optimizes clients' paid search, paid social, and display programs. And a fun fact, our first and second clients are still with us today, 12 years later. And that's because we have a pretty fantastic business model. Even better, it is that clients will see their accounts grow 250% faster after signing with us, and 93% of partners keep working with us. So, if you need a team of experts, we have a building full of them. Just a little look into who some of our clients are. Hanapin works with big brands and Fortune 500 companies in a variety of verticals. You can check out our clients page on hanapinmarketing.com for more information around that. Also, every year we release the State of PPC report. It is a statistical breakdown of the pay-per-click advertising industry, and we will be releasing our new report for 2018 next week. Quick bit about that, 79% of the State of PPC respondents say that they have a higher PPC budget this year than in 2016, and will have an even higher budget in 2018. So if you'd like to become one of the first to receive this in-depth report, you can subscribe to our newsletter on our site or use the link in the chat box. I also wanted to remind you guys today that throughout the webinar here, feel free to join in the conversation by tweeting with the hashtag ThinkPPC, and you can also submit questions to the question box, and we'll be hosting a Q&A here at the end of the webinar. And now we're going to post a live poll to gauge the PPC experience of the audience. While we wait, just a reminder, I do work as an AM here at Hanapin Marketing, and I've been in the industry for around a year and a half. Julie, would you mind going ahead and just talking a little bit about your experience in the industry?
Absolutely. So I've been at Google about 2 years now, working more specifically on the search side of things. But before that, I have about 6-7 years of agency experience working with clients from CPG to tech, software all over the place, doing more media planning, strategy, and just sort of seeing how all of the tech come together. So I'm really excited today to be able to pull in some of that as well and think about how we consider our conversations with our clients about getting us set up for holiday.
All right, awesome. Thanks, Julia. So we have the results here, and it looks like we have a pretty diverse group as far as experience goes. It looks like the majority of the users here around 3 to 5 years, with around 30% also less than a year. About 20% 1 to 3 years, and then 25% of you at 5+ years. So, as I said, pretty diverse group here. So I'm looking forward to really getting the conversation started. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and toss it over to you, Julia.
Perfect. So today what we want to talk to everybody about is how we're going to win this non-line shopper for the holiday season. And when we say non-line, it's really taking a different view of what we've considered in the past as getting somebody on mobile, getting someone on desktop, getting someone in store. It's really not like that anymore. Consumers are increasingly changing the way that they interact with us, and they don't differentiate between on and offline. For them, there's no such thing. It's really just the brand. It's what they need in the moment. And we've seen that as that shift has come, mobile has become a really important component. You hear it all the time, but especially when it comes to holiday, to shopping, having that mobile research, as you'll see a little bit later on, is a really crucial part of the way that you can engage in brands and get yourself to the forefront. Everyone really needs to put that customer at the heart of their marketing strategy, and that's something that I want you to think about it as you're as you're planning towards holiday, don't just be thinking about what you need, but what are your consumers looking for from you. So if we move on to the next slide, 64% of shopping to retailers last holiday season, looking at Black Friday to Cyber Monday, happened on mobile. And this is a really significant number. We're seeing that people are on their devices. They're finding them more useful. They're engaging more in ad clicks on there. They're being able to actually convert and purchase the things that they want and need. And this is a really big shift in the way that we thought about before. Not only is mobile playing an assist in terms of finding that research, but it's actually helping us to get conversion, to get people to our mobile sites, to get them to purchase. And this is something that was really heavy last year in the home and garden and toys and games industry as well. So keep that in mind if you're working across those verticals. Additionally, half of all traffic to retailers, or 50%, there was a 50% increase in shopping traffic to retailers from Black Friday to Cyber Monday last year. And that's from Google traffic. And what that means to us is that we're really seeing an influx in the amount of people that are visiting websites, that are going to your retail location when they're expecting those good deals, those higher prices. And what's interesting is it's actually been growing quite a bit abroad as well. So not only are we seeing this US shopping focused day be really big here in the States, but we saw really significant growth. Last year, France saw 100% growth in cyber Black Friday deal visitations, Spain, Australia, Germany. So you're not only capturing people in the US, but you're also getting others who are looking to buy your products, get those great deals abroad. So that's another thing. If you do ship internationally, and if you have that kind of core competency built in, that's something you'll want to tailor your creative messaging to, and make sure that you have the distribution channels in place to capture. Additionally, as I mentioned before, we know that mobile is a big component. We know that people are going on their phones. They're sitting there at Thanksgiving Day or the day after while they're with their families, just on their mobile devices trying to get in some shopping. But there are consumers that are going into stores as well. And what we found is that there's a lot of user activity happening about looking for things that are in stock near them before they go in to buy. So we want to make sure that we're not just going to show up at a store and the thing that we wanted is no longer available. Zach will talk a little bit later about the local inventory ads that we have to sort of help support this, but that's a really important thing to consider. You're not just there to get somebody to convert immediately through a mobile or a desktop ad, but you also want to make sure you're giving them enough information that when they walk into your retail location, they're able to convert and they're a little bit more knowledgeable. And the other thing that's really interesting is people who actually go and click on an ad and go to your site before they come into your physical location tend to spend about 10% more. So they're more knowledgeable, they have more background, they have more information about exactly what it is that they're going to buy, and they have a higher potential to actually invest more. So be mindful of that, especially when we talk about remarketing strategies a little later on. Know that when somebody has come to visit you, that somebody could be a very, very valuable shopper, and not only capturing them online, but also being able to follow them into store later on will be really fruitful for you. And one thing that I just wanted everybody to keep in mind on the next slide is, while we think about holiday as sort of a time for really big brands to compete, because of this new discovery, because of mobile, because of all the research that's taking place, we're finding that more users are actually going and purchasing from a brand other than the one that they intended to, because when they searched for something that they needed, another brand was able to come in and offer them better information. So everyone has a right to win and a right to play, and it's all about you curating the right information and giving yourself a differentiating factor to be able to actually convert somebody to purchase from you.
Thanks, Julia. So the main theme of this presentation is to really instill the concept of planning. Yes, it's only September, but planning and builds need to be happening now so you can adjust and maintain later. In other words, allotting yourself more time for strategic account management rather than the tedious account management. So just to give a quick outline of what we'll talk about today, here are some of the key points for winning this holiday season. 1, starting with a holiday plan. 2, leverage winning strategies to reach consumers. 3, plan ahead and anticipate holiday traffic. 4, stay on track with handy holiday guides. And 5, continue to keep the lights on. So with that, here's some key ways you can plan for a busy holiday season. Those are anything from forecasting Q4 budgets, smart bidding strategies, adding your entire inventory into your product feed. As Julia mentioned earlier, those remarketing audiences. I'll get into it a little bit later, but local inventory feeds, understanding last year's results, submitting merchant promotions, enabling cross-channel measurement, fixing your disapproved ads, creating a promotion schedule. The list goes on and on. So really just making sure that there are all these moving pieces that you need to be ahead of before things really start to take off during the holidays. So here we have it broken out into 4 sections that we'll go into in more depth later on. But those are getting the right information at the right moment, being present to drive discovery, doubling down on personalized experiences, and offering effortless non-online shopping experiences. And furthermore, something to consider, loyalty to needs, not brands. Knowing that mass messages are meaningless. As Julia mentioned, today's users are so well informed, and it's getting more and more competitive. So just making sure that you're giving them the right information to the right person. And finally, friction means failure. So making sure there is that seamless transition from whether it's mobile to desktop, mobile to local store, just ensuring that the entire sales process is specific and unique to each user.
And for that, you really want to start early. Like Zach mentioned, there's a lot to do and there's a lot of things to keep in mind, and you really want to start planning ahead for it now. We always tend to be a little bit behind during the holiday season. It sneaks up on us before we know it. But I wanted to share a few different things to keep top of mind. One is you really need to start early in terms of showing your ads and being present. We see that about 54% of shoppers say they plan to start holiday purchases right after Halloween. So that's coming up real quick. And in certain categories, research is already in full swing actually right now, and it's going to continue to be so. And in fact, every year, as consumers are more aware of this impending timeline, we see that there is a slight advancement of when the searches start to trend up and when we see those queries rising. The other thing to keep in mind is as holiday retail has evolved, the key shopping dates that we were comfortable with and knew keep evolving as well. So it used to be just about Black Friday and getting those Christmas sales. Then Cyber Monday really changed the game. We now have Small Business Saturday, Green Monday, Free Shipping Day. There's all these tent poles that consumers are starting to get accustomed to, and they're expecting to get offers, to get deals, to get communications about what they'll be offered on these key times of year. So make sure to plan around those. If you are able to offer promotions specific to those days, make sure to do so. Talk with your clients about how to get that set up, or if you are a client, think about how you can incorporate this into your overall marketing strategy. And the other really important component is this extends beyond just holiday as we know it. While we traditionally think of holiday as ending on December 31st, there's actually a lot of categories that show upticks in the earlier part of the following year. So Zach, if you'll flip to the next page, you can see that this is the percent of traffic that sees really a significant increase in January compared to October, so kind of the follow-up rather than the lead-in. But things like health and beauty, as you can imagine, office supplies is a really interesting one, furniture. People are sort of starting the new year, new leaf. Another thing that's an interesting tactic to consider is people might be going online to get information about returns, or they might be visiting after they've received something from your site, maybe as a gift during holiday season. That's your opportunity to get them to spend a little bit more, to buy something new, to get a pairing to what they purchased during holiday as well. So remember to keep the lights on. And this is something you should be thinking about now from a budgetary perspective as well. If a fiscal year is set to end December 31, you might want to start talking about what that means in January. How do we extend a couple weeks out at the very least? And we'll talk in a little bit about how we can source what that traffic is expected to be. The next thing we'll talk about is getting that right information to power user experiences. Like I mentioned earlier, brands have a real chance of taking over traffic and shifting perception if we can offer the right information that our consumers want to them. So if you'll flip to the next slide, holiday sales volume really is dependent on the inventory that you're able to share. So we saw that more than 50% of holiday shoppers said they were open to purchasing from new retailers other than the ones that they're used to. Again, this kind of lines up to that mobile number. So make sure that you're showing the right availability, the selection. Make sure you update all of your feeds to include colors, sizes, anything that somebody could be researching and opting for. The beauty of the shopping algorithm that we have is it really tries to pair what somebody is specifically looking for with what they'll receive. So pair into your entire inventory, add it all into the merchant center. Get as much information as you can in there. Beef up those merchant feeds to get the best bang for your buck. Additionally, we want to make sure that we're showing a lot to our customers from a product image perspective. We've become a very visual society, especially on the internet, and once Google Shopping was introduced, it really changed the game of how we think about browsing for content and what we're looking for and the products that we're after. So make sure that you have a very extensive library of really beautiful imagery of your products that shows them the exact right angle that they'll want and that they'll commit to. Additionally, you want to make sure that all of your in-store inventory is reflected in the feeds as well. So that, like I mentioned before, in this non-line world, it's not just about having all your desktop and online inventory present, but do you have a brick and mortar presence where you can drive a user to potentially? Can you help them understand if they'll be able to go there today and buy exactly what they need? And make sure that if you have a limited stock, to include that as well. It can increase urgency, it can get people to act quicker, but it also can prevent them from potentially going in and having a negative experience with your brand. So include all those potential annotations, inventory availabilities that you can. The more you can include that local data, it also increases your visibility across our shopping network, so keep that in mind if that applies to you.
And furthermore, it is important to recognize that shopping is completely different when compared to search as far as ad creation and standing out against those competitors. So a great place to start is by having those rich, descriptive, and informative titles and descriptions in your feed that Julia was mentioning earlier. This not only informs users and entices a click over competitors, but on the other hand, it can help qualify that traffic and prevent wasted clicks, say if someone's not searching for that Ann Taylor women's sweater, black, size 6. That tells what the product is and what they should expect to see when clicking on it. Furthermore, you can be proactive with the utilization of feed rules. This can help with feed management, naming values, etc. And it can also help by streamlining those informative ad features, such as in this case, shipping fields based on the weight. So you can also use feed rules for custom labels in order to group certain products for segmenting performance or promotions or really anything that you know is going to be a top priority during the holiday season, just trying to keep a closer eye on those and having that lens for whenever you're measuring the feed performance as well as the end result of the conversion. It's also very important to be aware of your situation, not only before but during the holiday season. And some ways I like to do this are by one, keeping an eye on shopping sessions in Google Analytics. I personally like to create a custom dashboard similar to the one that I have here on the slide. But this, you can see various shopping metrics around sessions, impressions, and clicks, your revenue, and the different type of browser breakdowns. You can also set up Google Alerts to keep up to date on your clients and industries. And by doing this, if you're not familiar, just simply Google Alerts, and you can pick certain elements that you want to receive daily or weekly emails on. So something I like to do is make sure that I have alerts set up for all of my clients, and if they do have a specific industry, I make sure that I have alerts coming in for that. Again, it just helps be more proactive and have a more all-encompassing understanding of what's going on with your client. You can also set up email alerts from AdWords and Supermetrics and other like forms that basically send you a report each day of what is going on with your shopping efforts. I also like to periodically check the Merchant Center just to make sure the products are accurately uploading and that I'm addressing all disapprovals. And then finally, I have make sure you have some way to make sure that new products are getting added to your current campaigns. Like we said, we're setting these up well before the holiday season, but sometimes you might have new products roll out. So just make sure whether that is some form of optimization tool, a third party, or you just manually doing it. Just make sure that you're not leaving those new products up to an everything else bid.
Now to talk about a little bit about being present and helping drive discovery, first and foremost, identify when your customers are ready to buy. So that's one of the most important pieces, is looking at historical information. If you have your own data, if you were active and live last holiday season, go back in there and take a look at your impression shares. See how many clicks you were potentially missing out on by not being present. Make sure that you're also tracking what the lift in potential queries is, and use Google Trends as a proxy to estimate when demand might be highest for some of your top products. So taking a look in there and seeing when they're more likely to be indexed at a higher volume level allows you to, again, now start planning for what are those peak days that I'm going to be up against. Maybe I can't compete in Cyber Monday. Perhaps that's a really cluttered category for me. But I saw that for my particular vertical, 4 days after Cyber Monday, we saw a huge uplift in searches last year. How can I capitalize on that? The other component here that I really wanted to touch on is ensuring that you're there for the terms that come up that might not be related to your brand. Zach, if you'll flip to the next page, we see that 40% of shopping-related searches actually come from broad terms. So these are things that are not necessarily tied to your business, but instead people are just doing exploratory searches. Instead of searching IKEA dresser, they could just be searching furniture that they might need. Instead of a Nike Flex Experience shoe, they're probably just searching running shoe. And that's a really important insight that we had, that we've actually started adapting towards in our own products as well. And with that, we introduced showcase shopping ads. So this is something that's available if you have the new AdWords interface rolled out. But what you're able to do now is essentially target people based on really broad terms with more of an exploratory and discovery-like creative. So rather than having a specific product that you are having to match your data to with exact certainty, you can actually now just curate products and images that are more lifestyle branded, and it now gives somebody who might be, as in this example, searching for backpacks, a better idea of the kinds of things that they can find within your particular retail location or within your particular brand. And it's not as tied to just the one product. Like, let's say if it was black leather backpack, you're not as limited in your inventory that you're able to showcase. So definitely something I highly recommend activating if you have the ability to do so. This is a really, really important way to get into that consideration set. And again, something that we should think about doing now as people are researching, prepping, getting ready for the actual purchase cycle in December and November. And the other thing that I encourage you to think about is really taking a look at your top sellers and your holiday products and differentiating against how you're going to set up your shopping campaigns. So you want to think in both volume and profit margin. What holiday items do you have that are going to bring you the biggest return? Where are you going to get the majority of traffic from? And make sure that you're segmenting these out. Zach will walk you through a little bit of how to think about this on a more tactical basis, but be flexible with your budgets and really be strategic in thinking about what parts of my business are the ones that are going to give me the greatest potential return. And this is somewhere where I've seen a lot of people fall short on. They tend to just launch one big shopping campaign, every item that they have in their feed, and it's really tougher to manage and to assign value to each of those in a separate basis.
Yeah, and before I talk a little bit about more of that tactical approach with your structure, I did want to bring up as well here it's important to be both vigilant and aggressive with your bidding. As you see here, 25% of shopping clicks go to the first position on mobile. So beyond some of those feed updates and PLA copy optimizations, really remain competitive from a bid perspective, especially as the traffic starts to amp up in the busier side of the season there. Now, bringing it back to what Julia was mentioning with the more tactical approach to how you should be breaking out your campaigns. Place more value on those head holiday items, a little less value on those typically top performing categories, but maybe you're not running specific sales on, and then even less value on those tail core products. But to put that to a different perspective, as you see here, we have a top product categories and all products breakout. You should set your priority settings high, medium, and low respectively from the top to the all products. And then just the same, have a tiered bidding approach from very aggressive to those top performers down to a more conservative bidding strategy with your all products. Here you can afford to bid aggressively on those top performers because they're your best converting, your highest returning. So there's definitely that room there to ensure that you stay as competitive as possible when it comes to how you match up against your competitors. Another point here is the catch-all, and that really serves two purposes in this type of structure. One being that it grabs the more general traffic or the traffic that you didn't think about, and then two, it's a fail-safe for those top products. When maybe those higher tiered campaigns run out of budget, if they're still getting traffic, you can make sure that you're grabbing that with your all products campaign at the bottom.
Cool. So now about the personalization aspect, and this is something that I feel really passionately about, something that we've as a company invested a lot of effort into, ensuring that we have a really strong audience capability for you. And holiday is one of the most important times to do this. It's one of the biggest traffic seasons for anyone that's in the shopping realm, to get a lot of volume and a lot of interest. And what we need to figure out is how do we capture that and how do we best understand who we're bringing in and how to maximize our return from them. So there's three kind of buckets that you can think about in terms of building your audience segments. One are remarketing lists, so re-engaging people who visited your site who might be higher value than someone before. I think in holiday this is extremely important because we see a ton of comparison shopping. So someone will go to your site, be looking at this leather backpack that they were wanting to buy. It might be outside their price range and they think, you know what, Black Friday's coming around, I might be able to get a better deal. Then they go to another website and they look at their products. But if you're able to capture that individual and remarket to them, potentially offer them a discount or bring them back to your site, that's somebody that's much more likely to convert. They're already familiar, they're already interested. You can think as a strategy of putting somebody who is a shopping cart abandoner potentially into a separate campaign and reaching those individuals with more and more ads as they're doing their comparison shopping. The same goes for customer match. This is a slightly different tactic, but customer match is essentially using all of your existing first-party data and emails that you have, figuring out how you message to those individuals. So this is different in the sense that you can now take anybody who's purchased from you in the past and market to them, and you can send them messages based on the targeting that you have assigned in your own marketing tactics in the past. So let's say that you had a list of people who purchased last holiday. Maybe you had someone who purchased from you 180 days ago and they just haven't come back. This is a really good time to reactivate their thinking of you. And the final piece is the similar audiences. And we've seen really strong success on applying these onto both remarketing lists and to customer match. So essentially a similar audience is us using all of these different data signals that we have about the individuals across our properties and saying, you know what, if this particular person visited your site, we can find you 5, 10, 15, 20 more that are just like them that have a much higher propensity to convert and buy from you. And it's definitely a higher up the funnel tactic, but a really important one. If we move down to the next section here, you also want to make sure that you're re-engaging them with these lists because this is a really substantial way to get them to convert. Here are some more stats that put that into a more numeric perspective for you. 1, 2 out of 5 mobile shoppers will leave a website without converting. We see this over and over again in a holiday especially. And 50% of people usually take 2 to 4 site visits before they purchase. So they go to lots of your competitors. They see where they can try and get the best deal. Nobody's really brand loyal anymore. So it's about offering them and trying to get them in that right instant. So today, one thing you can do as you set up for holiday, make sure that you have shopping remarketing lists across every single one of your campaigns. If you're running any other kind of display, YouTube, search tactics, make sure that you're capturing those audiences as well. And then also make sure that you're re-engaging those really loyal customers through customer match. You can apply this to Gmail and run very specific Gmail creative to them that has like a catalog template of all of the different products that are featured. So a few things for you to kind of kick off with today.
It's also important to remember those ad features that help you stand out. For instance, Google will dynamically surface free shipping and price drops. However, you can also utilize merchant promotions. Similar to search ad extensions, it adds that extra line of ad real estate and offers a little bit more information to the user. I have an example here on the slide that shows what they look like. At first, you'd see the tag special offer, then it would expand into a little bit more information around the promotion, including the promo code, maybe how many days are left, or whatever certain expiration date is associated with that. This is a free feature that should be in your Merchant Center, but if you don't see it, you can fill out an interest form within the Merchant Center, and it's a pretty easy process. You basically just send over your information, and it's a fairly quick turnaround on getting that option added to your Merchant Center. Also, as mentioned, Google will show the price drop here. So in this case, by adding a sale price and date in the right format within your feed, your ad will show the price drop. For example, say your normal price was $30 and the sale price was $20. The PLA would then show a 33% price drop in the actual copy. So again, just really trying to add the added line of text there, taking up more ad real estate and further enticing that click with your users as they come in. And with that, I will toss it back over to Julia.
Thanks, Zach. One of the last pillars here is offering that non-line shopping experience, making it really simple for people to transfer across every single touch point that you have for them. So a few of the ways to think about this non-line consumer journey: make sure that you're looking at every channel in terms of, one, seamless experiences, so from device to device. Looking at how you go from desktop to mobile, making it super simple for people to move from one to the other. If maybe they're on a mobile device and doing research, you see that you've gotten them to your site, they got to the shopping cart, and you're getting a lot of abandonment because you may not have a very strong mobile interface for purchase. Give them somewhere to enter their email address. Maybe offer to email them the product, or have sign-in information on both your mobile and desktop device so that once they visit you on desktop, their shopping cart preloads with the products that they have. Zach, if you want to head to the next slide. The other one is online to offline. So as I mentioned before, there's a lot of research that's being done prior to somebody entering your store. Make sure that you're clearly communicating with those local inventory ads that we'll get to in a second, what they're going to find when they get into a store location. And as a business in general, make sure that your teams inside of your retail locations, if you do have them, your brick and mortars, are actually prepped to talk about how somebody can go online and find more inventory. And make sure that you're internally as an organization really considering that lineage between the two, considering how whenever somebody is in your store location, your team that's operating that's setting up your highest value products on the top shelves or right when you enter the store is matching that up to the same team that's investing higher in those products on search. Because at the end of the day, it really shouldn't matter where your customer is purchasing as long as they get what they're looking for. And finally, it's measurement. We have a few measurement techniques that we're able to put in place for people who do have a lot of store locations. We're able to track the number of visits that were generated from an ad click to somebody actually walking into the store. We're also working on being able to track the actual purchases based on credit card data and third-party data, whether somebody clicked on an ad and furthermore then went in store. So a lot of really exciting things happening on that front. On this slide specifically, in terms of the seamless experience, make sure that you have a really strong mobile site. One really excellent tool, if you're not familiar at this moment, is testmysite.thinkwithgoogle.com. It's an incredible tool. All you do is you type in your URL for your website, and it'll give you a score for your mobile friendliness, your mobile speed, and your desktop speed. And then it will actually show you steps you can take to improve it on the spot. So you can work with your developer team to put that in action. Again, this is the time to do it. You want to make sure that your mobile site is in a good spot because this will be where you lose the majority of your customers this holiday season. If they're just not feeling like they can convert, you want to remove as much of that friction from beginning research to the final result of purchase. And it's really important, as you can see, every 1 second delay in your load time, it doesn't seem like a lot, but your conversions tend to fall about 20%. So it's really significant, and it certainly adds up over time. If you have a mobile site speed that's in the red, I would act on that as soon as possible.
Yeah, and I've actually tested this before myself, Julian. It is a great, quick, easy, free option to, at the very least, throw up some red flags on your site on where you can make some of those quick optimizations to really help with the mobile experience. But as we move on here, it's really crazy to think about the type of relationship that local intent has with shopping efforts. But as we see here, local shopping intent continues to rise yearly, especially during peak holiday weeks. As noted, there are a few important notes around here. As far as shoppers indicating the higher local intent during the holiday season, local intent query growing 75% year over year for 2 years in a row, and local intent queries peaking after the shipping cutoff. So definitely important to understand this trend as we're on pace for even higher numbers this year. Local inventory ads are also a new feature that Julie and I have mentioned that can also be a huge addition to any e-commerce shopping strategy, especially if you have those physical locations for your products, whether that's your brick and mortar locations or maybe some of those vendors that carry your products as well that are also advertising those online. Whether the sale ends offline or online, just make sure that you're there to provide influence and help potential buyers along the way. As you can see, we have a couple examples of PLAs here showing distance in one of the ads, and then after expanding, showing a little bit more information around having stock nearby and showing you a map. But with it, I kind of wanted to kick it back over to you, Julia, real quick, just to speak a little more to these local inventory ads and what they can mean to your e-commerce account.
Yeah, these are really underutilized, I would say, from my experience at the very least. If you do have a brick and mortar store, I highly encourage you to get these enabled. It is a little bit of a setup process in the beginning. It might take a few weeks to get them up and running. So again, we wanted to have this webinar now in order to get you armed with the tools that you'll need to be successful, and this is one of them. Make sure that you're pulling in every piece of inventory that you have. And the other thing is start measuring. See if your in-store sales rise when you get these going. That's what we've seen at the very least. We've seen that when you add these in, it gives the consumer more choice. It lets them feel like they can maybe go in if this is, these particular products that are included here are more just like headphones, something that's probably an easy lift to purchase online. But for clients that I've worked with that sell mattresses, for instance, that's something that you have to go into a store and look and feel and touch. And you want to make sure that for the user that needs that and wants that, you're giving them that option and creating that full pathway.
Yeah, so definitely important to realize and understand the influence that these PLAs are having on local intent. And finally here, just this last piece to remember to optimize bids where you can, specifically around mobile, location, and time. And there are obviously multiple ways to do this, and it'll definitely vary upon the account. But just remember a couple of notes here, especially that I like to consider as I'm thinking about these, and that's one, many conversion paths begin on mobile even when they don't necessarily end there. I know it seems pretty obvious, but oftentimes when we're going in and trying to make these bid adjustments, that can kind of fall by the wayside. So definitely keep that in mind. Also, you should be bidding up around your physical locations in other areas that typically maybe have high conversion rates. So whether that is your brick and mortar location, try bidding up there, see what the data shows, or even dig into performance from last holiday season and see what maybe specific states, cities, or regions had a higher conversion rate, and really trying to capitalize on those again. And then finally, just remember the time of day, not only from a historical account performance perspective, but also in conjunction with even your local store hours. Again, depending on the nature of what your shopping campaign setup is, and if you do have those brick and mortar locations. But kind of tying back to having that more informative intent with the search and showing that PLA at an ideal time during your shopping hours can also help along the way affect conversion path. And with that, I'll toss it back to you, Julia, for a quick recap.
Cool. So the things we talked about today, one, starting with a plan, making sure that you know when those key times are going to be for your brand, for your business, and in the industry overall. Two, leveraging the winning strategies that we've seen work significantly in the past. So getting that right information to your users, getting all of the data into your titles, updating your product feed, sending those really high quality images. Also making sure that you're there for the discovery phase. So as we talked about the showcase ads, making sure that you're there in the first position whenever possible to get that higher click share. In terms of personalized experiences, enabling all of the potential audiences and first-party data at your disposal right now, getting those remarketing lists enabled, similar audiences, pulling the email lists from within your organization and ensuring that you have a really strong segmentation against them, and then creating a really frictionless non-line shopping experience. So making it really easy to find the information that users need, launching local inventory ads, improving your mobile site, all are really important. Planning ahead and anticipating that holiday traffic, that really goes with starting with a plan, but take a look at last year, see where you stood, see what your impression share was, go into Google Trends to understand what the impact will be in this year as well for your category, for your search terms. Make sure that you look at holiday checklists that are sync with Google as well, so that and a lot of the things that we've covered today in terms of the implementation, and then make sure that you're keeping the lights on after holiday. Remember that December 31st is not the end of a user's engagement with you. Not only do we want to make sure that we're continuing on through holiday, through January of next year, but if you do get a lot of new traffic and a lot of new consumers to your site in November, December this year, make sure that you keep them around for the next. When you have sales coming up, let's say in February or in March, whatever other big key periods there are for your brand as you move into 2018, keep in mind these remarketing lists and pools of audiences that you've developed, and figure out ways to really communicate with them in a more effective way to increase the performance of your business overall.
And before we move into our Q&A here, just a quick plug. What is the Solutions Blueprint? It's a free custom account analysis for companies and brands that spend $15K per month in ad spend. And one of Hanapin's experts essentially looks into your account and compares the structure and results to industry standards. I highly suggest this as opposed to an in-house PPC team. Just double check your work with a fresh set of eyes in the account. And that leads us to our live Q&A. So let's see here. Moving on. So the first question we have here is, where do you think most advertisers fall short in holiday prep? Really the two that I think would be, one, waiting too long to begin planning. As Julie and I have talked about, start today. I know it sounds a little bit obvious and easy, but really just trying to get all of the initial build strategies, looking at last year's data, having all that out of the way to begin with, so whenever the traffic does begin to rise, you can push at it with full force, and from there basically maintain and have a more strategic approach to what you're doing. I would also say underestimating local mobile bidding. Again, it sounds easy on paper, but just make sure that we remember that even though the direct return might not always be there, it is important to consider how that is influence your overall conversion path. What are your thoughts around that, Julia?
Yeah, I agree with you completely. Just making sure that you have all of the right things in place. You know, oftentimes I feel like people tend to be scrambling on the little things like going through their feeds or putting in all of these different audiences and stuff when it's too late to do so, when you're not really getting the most efficiency out of it as well. So get all the basic stuff that's going to be a nuisance to you later out of the way now, so that you can really be strategic about optimizing in the moment against what your shopping campaigns are performing like, and where you're seeing the biggest returns in the times that they matter, so that you're not kind of playing catch up when you're completely overloaded with a lot of other things.
Thanks, Julia. See here. Does the audience have any more specific questions?
Looks like one question was, can you target the showcase ads with keywords, or will Google still match the query to the showcase or product titles? So showcase shopping ads work just like shopping ads do. They're still query driven, and we will just match based on the information included in the showcase and product titles, as well as what we're seeing on that website, particularly what the user will find and the different products that are featured.
See, we had another one. Which bidding strategy do you get the best return on? I do think that would probably, I mean, obviously vary with the account and what your end goals were, but I guess from a more high-level general answer, I really think that device bidding is huge, specifically for shopping. Typically, I like to pull back a little bit on mobile, just as desktop typically does have that higher conversion rate. And mobile traffic, and sometimes if you do have a lower budget, steal up some of that. But that also leads me to sometimes create mobile-specific shopping campaigns as well, because they have also shown their own success in my experience. Again, I think it's important to remember where that conversion path is starting and making sure that we're not cutting that off. But also, as we talked about specifically around those local inventory ads, is bidding around the locations, I think, is very useful. If you do have those brick-and-mortar locations, it'll help offline sales if you bid up around those. And I also have seen situations where certain locations, like I mentioned earlier, just naturally tend to convert higher, especially around the holidays.
And Zach, actually, it looks like there's another question that ties really closely to what you were saying. So at the beginning, I mentioned that 64% of shopping traffic to retailers happened on mobile from Black Friday to Cyber Monday. And the question was whether it was people that converted or it was just traffic to the site. That particular statistic is just traffic to the site. And I think that kind of goes along with what you were saying, but I also want to kind of speak to that a little bit more, because if we're seeing that a good majority of traffic is coming to our sites, we shouldn't try to stay away from it and necessarily bid down on it. What we should be thinking instead is, if people are coming to my site, how do I help them get the experience that they want, and how do I help them get to that final purchase? So a good example, not everyone can be an Amazon, but if you think about Amazon and the buy button and the way that they've evolved their product, the majority of traffic that they have is coming on mobile devices, and they're seeing really strong conversions there. Granted, we can't all necessarily replicate that experience because it takes quite a bit of budget and resources, but what are little things you can do to improve performance on your site? How do you get someone to the buy page faster? How do you make it easier for them to buy? So putting in different purchase methods or different payment methods, connecting it to like an Apple Pay or something like that, preloading their credit card information, preloading their account information. Anything you can do, these are little things that all of us can take steps towards doing. So while I think the gut reaction is to want to bid down on mobile because you don't see the conversion there, ultimately, if you eliminate that mobile traffic, you also lose a lot of the volume that's coming to your sites overall. So think about that as another perspective on the matter, because the traffic will be there, and if you're not able to convert them, you're potentially sacrificing a customer in that moment.
Yeah, definitely agreed there, Julia. And actually, you brought up Amazon. We had another question roll in that kind of relates to that, as far as how should a brand plan to combat a shopper who would rather go to Amazon to get Prime shipping? What were your thoughts around that one?
Yeah, I mean, I think the shipping we've seen has become like a really kind of a place to win for a lot of e-retailers. And in fact, there is that like free shipping day that's now developed mid-December when what people are starting to get used to. I think that's we can't necessarily take customers away from Amazon unless we can offer them, something that's similar or equal. So if you can't bring down your shipping prices, can you bring down the cost of your product? If you know somebody has come to your site and they're researched, but they bounced off and never completed the purchase, can you then remarket to them and offer them free shipping? So you're not maybe offering it across the board, but you're limiting the number of people that receive it. I think those are the kinds of things that you could be doing. And definitely, we've seen that majority of searches today, there's definitely a lot of search happening within Amazon proper itself. But a majority of kind of those beginner searches are still happening on Google. So you still get that first right to take somebody to your site to get them to buy from you. What happens next is really kind of in your hands of where you're able to compete.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that it's naturally something to consider. But just kind of going back to the different tactics we talked about as far as how to stand out, tying into your local intent, I think can be huge. And also just some of the stats I think you hit on earlier in the presentation, Julia, but just how more informed users are now and the type of process they go through now to do research on products where they might come to your site 2 to 4 times before they actually convert. And just the same, they might be visiting other sites, whether that is Amazon or a competitor. There's really a lot of research happening, so I think that's another important thing to consider as well. It looks like that is our last question now, so as we wrap up today, I would just like to say if you would like to contact Hanapin, you can do so at marketing@hanapinmarketing.com, or if you'd like to contact Julia for follow-up or questions, you can do so at juliameter@google.com. And we will be sending out a version of this webinar, and I just want to say thanks again to everyone, and thanks, Julia, for joining us today, for your time, attention, and for all of your questions.
Thanks, everyone.